Okay, that should take care of that. And it's got us on YouTube. And now I just need to make sure that I'm chapter 11, you say?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So then that should mean lots of notes for chapter 10. My God. Chapter 11, Who Stole the Tarts? Okay, for those of you out in video land, we're continuing our reading of Alice in Wonderland, reading and discussion of Alice in Wonderland. And today we are going to begin chapter 11. Um, so, and the title of chapter 11 is Who Stole the Tarts? Here we go. The king and the queen of hearts were seated on their throne when they arrived, with a great crowd assembled about them, all sorts of little birds and beasts, as well as the whole pack of cards. The knave was standing beside them, before them, in chains, with a soldier on each side to guard him. And near the king was the white rabbit with a trumpet in hand and a scroll of parchment in the other. In the very middle of the court was a table with a large dish of tarts upon it. Oh, they looked so good that it made Alice quite hungry to look at them. I wish they'd get the trial done, she thought, and hand round the refreshments. There seemed to be no chance of this, so she began looking at everything about her to pass away the time. Next reader, Joan.
Turn the page. Alice had never been in a court of justice before, but she had read about them in books, and she was quite pleased to find that she knew the name of nearly everything there. That's the judge, she said to herself, because of his great wig. The judge, by the way, was the king, and as he wore his crown over the wig, look at the frontispiece if you want to see how he did it. He did not look at all comfortable, and it was certainly not becoming. And that's the jury box, thought Alice. And those 12 creatures, she was obliged to say creatures, you see, because some of them were animals and some were birds. I suppose they are the jurors. She said this last word 2 or 3 times over to herself, being rather proud of it, for she thought, and rightly too, that very few little girls of her age knew the meaning of it all. However, jurymen would have done just as well. Tom?
Yeah. The 12 jurors were all writing very busily on slates. What are they doing? Alice whispered to the Griffin. They can't have anything to put down yet before the trial's begun. They're putting down their names, said the Griffin whispered in reply, for fear they should forget them before the end of the trial. Stupid things, Alice began in a loud, indignant voice, but she stopped herself hastily, for the white rabbit cried out, Silence in the court, and the king put on his spectacles and looked anxiously round to make out who was talking. Alice could see, as well as if she were looking over their shoulders, that all the jurors were writing down stupid things on their slates, and she could even make out that one of them didn't know how to spell stupid, and that he had to ask his neighbour to tell him. A nice muddle their slates will be in before the trial's over, thought Alice. One of the jurors had a pencil that squeaked. This, of course, Alice could not stand, and she went round the court and got behind him, and very soon found an opportunity of taking it away. She did it so quickly that the poor little juror, it was Bill the lizard, could not make out at all what had become of it. So, after hunting all about for it, he was obliged to write with one finger for the rest of the day, and this was of very little use, as it left no mark on the slate. Katrina?
Harold, read the accusation, said the king. On this, the white rabbit blew 3 breaths on the trumpet and then unrolled the parchment scroll and read as follows. The Queen of Hearts, she made some tarts all on a summer day. The Knave of Hearts, he stole those tarts and took them quite away. Consider your verdicts, the king said to the jury. Not yet, not yet, the rabbit hastily interrupted. There's a great deal to come before that. Call the first witness, said the king, and the white rabbit blew 3 blasts on the trumpet and called out, First witness. The first witness was the Hatter. He came in with a teacup in one hand and a piece of bread and butter in the other. I beg pardon, your majesty, he began, for bringing these in, but I hadn't quite finished my tea when I was sent for. You ought to have finished, said the king. When did you begin? The Hatter looked at the March Hare, who had followed him into the court, arm in arm with the Dormouse. 14th of March, I think it was, he said. 15th, said the March Hare. 16th, said the Dormouse. Write that down, the king said to the jury, and the jury eagerly wrote down all 3 dates on their slates, and then added them up and reduced the answer to shillings and pence. Death.
Take off your hat, the king said to the Hatter. It isn't mine, said the Hatter. Stolen, the king exclaimed, turning to the jury, who instantly made a memorandum of the facts. I keep them to sell, the Hatter answered as an explanation. I've none of my own. I'm a Hatter. Here the Queen put on her spectacles and began staring at the Hatter, who turned pale and fidgeted. Give your evidence, said the king, and don't be nervous, or I'll have you executed on the spot. This did not seem to encourage the witness at all. He kept shifting from one foot to the other, looking uneasily at the Queen, and in his confusion he bit a large piece out of his teacup instead of the bread and butter. Just at this moment, Alice felt a very curious sensation, which puzzled her a good deal until she made out what it was. She was beginning to grow larger again, and she thought at first she would get up and leave the court, but on second thoughts, she decided to remain where she was as long as there was room for her. Duncan.
I wish you wouldn't squeeze so, said the Dormouse, who was sitting next to her. I can hardly breathe. I can't help it, said Alice very meekly. I'm growing. And Doyle, we're on chapter 11.
Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't find the login details and I'm not at home.
Okay.
But I found them eventually.
I can't help it, said Alice very meekly. I'm growing. You have no right to grow here, said the Dormouse. Don't talk nonsense, said Alice. Yes, but I grow at a reasonable pace, said the Dormouse, not in that ridiculous fashion. And he got up very sulkily and crossed over to the other side of the court. At this time, the Queen had never left off staring at the Hatter. And just as the Dormouse crossed the court, she said to one of the officers of the court, "Bring me the list of the singers in the last concert." On which the wretched Hatter trembled so that he shook off both his shoes. "Give us your evidence," the king repeated angrily. "I'll have you executed whether you're nervous or not." I'm a very poor man, your majesty, the Hatter began in a trembling voice, and I haven't begun my tea, not above a week or so. And what with the bread and butter getting so thin and the twinkling of the tea. And Doyle, you know where we are?
Yes, thank you.
All
Will I
right.
go?
Yes, you shall go.
Okay, thank you. The twinkling of what, said the king. It began with the tea, the Hatter replied. Of course, twinkly begins with a tea. Oh, very funny, said the king sharply. Do you take me for a dunce? Go on. I'm a poor man, the Hatter went on, and most things twinkled after that, only the March Hare said. I didn't, the March Hare interrupted in a great hurry. You did, said the Hatter. I deny it, said the March Hare. He denies it, said the king. Leave out that part. Well, at any rate, the Dormouse said. The Hatter went on, looking anxiously round to see if he would deny it too. But the Dormouse denied nothing, being fast asleep. After that, continued the Hatter, I cut some more bread and butter. But what did the Dormouse say? One of the jury asked. I can't remember, said the Hatter. You must remember, remarked the king, I'll have you executed. The miserable Hatter dropped his teacup and bread and butter and went down on one knee. I'm a poor man, your majesty, he began. You're a very poor speaker, said the king. Here, one of my guinea pigs cheered and was immediately suppressed by the officers of the court. As that is rather a hard word, I will just explain to you how it was done. They had a large canvas bag, which tied up at the mouth with strings. Into this they slipped the guinea pig, head first, and then sat upon it. I'm glad I've seen that done, thought Alice. I've so often read in the newspaper at the end of trials that there was some attempt at applause, which was immediately suppressed by the officers of the court, and I never understood what it meant till now. If that's all you know about it, you may stand down, continued the king. I can go no lower, said Hatter. I'm on the floor as it is. Next, please.
Then you may sit down, the king replied. Here the other guinea pig cheered and was suppressed. Come, that finishes the guinea pigs, thought Alice. Now we shall get on better. I'd rather finish my tea, said the Hatter, with an anxious look at the Queen, who was reading the list of singers. You may go, said the king, and the Hatter hurriedly left the court without even waiting to put his shoes on. And just take his head off outside, the Queen added to one of the officers. But the Hatter was out of sight before the officer could get to the door. Call the next witness, said the king. The next witness was the Duchess's cook. She carried the pepper box in her hand, and Alice guessed who it was, even before she got into the court, by the way the people near the door began sneezing all at once. Give your evidence, said the king. Shan't, said the cook. The king looked anxiously at the White Rabbit, who said in a low voice, Your Majesty must examine this witness. Well, if I must, I must, the king said with a melancholy air, and after folding his arms and frowning at the cook till his eyes were nearly out of sight, he said in a deep voice, What are the tarts made of? Pepper mostly, said the cook. Treacle, said a sleepy voice behind her. Collar that dormouse, the Queen shrieked out. Behead that dormouse. Turn that dormouse out of court. Suppress him, pinch him, off with his whiskers. For some minutes, the whole court was in confusion, getting the dormouse turned out, and by the time they had settled down again, the cook had disappeared. Never mind, said the king with an air of great relief. Call the next witness. And he added in an undertone to the Queen, Really, my dear, you must examine the next witness. It quite makes my forehead ache. Alice watched the White Rabbit as he fumbled over the list, feeling very curious to see what the next witness would be like. For they haven't got much evidence yet, she said to herself. Imagine her surprise when the White Rabbit read out at the top of his shrill little voice the name, Alice. Next, please.
Okay.
Okay. Chapter 12. Alice's Evidence. Here, cried Alice, quite forgetting in the flurry of the moment how large he had grown in the last few minutes, and she jumped up in such a hurry that she tipped over the jury box with the edge of her skirt, upsetting all the jurymen onto the heads of the crowd below, and there they lay sprawling about, reminding her very much of a globe of goldfish she had accidentally upset the week before. Oh, I beg your pardon, she exclaimed in a tone of great dismay, and began picking them up again as quickly as she could. For the accident of the goldfish kept running in her head, and she had a vague sort of idea that they must be collected at once and put back into the jury box, or they would die. The trial cannot proceed, said the king in a very grave voice, until all the jurymen are back in their proper places. All, he repeated with great emphasis, looking hard at Alice as he said so. Alice looked at the jury box and saw that, in her haste, she had put the lizard in head downwards, and the poor little thing was waving its tail about in a melancholy way, being quite unable to move. She soon got it out again and put it right. Not that it signifies much, she said to herself. I should think it would be quite as much use in the trial one way up as the other. As soon as the jury had a little recovered from the shock of being upset, and their slates and pencils had been found and handed back to them, they set to work very diligently to write out a history of the accident, all except the lizard, who seemed too much overcome to do anything but sit with its mouth open, gazing up into the roof of the court. Katrina?
What do you know about this business? The king said to Alice. Nothing, said Alice. Nothing whatever, persisted the king. Nothing whatever, said Alice. That's very important, the king said, turning to the jury. They were just beginning to write this down on their slates when the White Rabbit interrupted. Unimportant, your majesty means, of course, he said, in a very respectful tone, but frowning and making faces at him as he spoke. Unimportant, of course, I meant, the king said hastily, and went on to himself in an undertone, important, unimportant, unimportant, important, as if he were trying which word sounded best. Some of the jury wrote it down, important, and some unimportant. Alice could see this as she was near enough to look over their slates, but it doesn't matter, she thought to herself. At this moment, the king, who had been for some time busily writing in his notebook, called out silence and read out from his book, Rule 42, all persons more than a mile high to leave the court. Everybody looked at Alice. I'm not a mile high, said Alice. You are, said the king. Nearly 2 miles high, added the queen. Well, I shan't go at any rate, said Alice. Besides, that is not a regular rule. You invented it just now. It's the oldest rule in the book, said the king. Then it ought to be number 1, said Alice. Next, Des.
The king turned pale and shut his notebook hastily. Consider your verdict, he said to the jury in a low, trembling voice. There's more evidence to come yet, please your majesty, said the White Rabbit, jumping up in a great hurry. This paper has just been picked up. What's in it? Said the Queen. I haven't opened it yet, said the White Rabbit, but it seems to be a letter written by the prisoner to somebody. It must have been that, said the King, unless it was written to nobody, which isn't usual, you know. Who is it directed to? Said one of the jurymen. It isn't directed at all, said the White Rabbit. In fact, there's nothing written on the outside. He unfolded the paper as he spoke and added, it isn't a letter after all, it's a set of verses. Are they in the prisoner's handwriting? Asked another juryman. No, they're not, said the White Rabbit, and that's the queerest thing about it. The jury all looked puzzled. He must have imitated somebody else's hand, said the king. The jury all brightened up again. Please, your majesty, said the knave, I didn't write it, and they can't prove I did. There's no name signed at the end. If you didn't write it, said the king, that only makes the matter worse. You must have meant some mischief, or else you'd have signed your name like an honest man. Duncan.
Actually, Anne.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. Anne.
Are you there, Anne?
You muted?
I think
Sorry. I was muted, sorry. There was a general clapping of hands at this. It was the first really clever thing the king had said that day. That proves his guilt, of course, said the Queen. So off it. Doesn't prove anything of the sort, said Alice. Why, you don't even know what they're about. Read them, said the king. The White Rabbit put on his spectacles Where shall I begin, please your majesty? He asked. Begin at the beginning, the king said gravely, and go on till you come to the end, and then stop. There was dead silence in the court, whilst the white rabbit read out these verses. They told me you had been to her, and mentioned me to him. She gave me a good character, but said I could not swim. He sent them word I had not gone. We knew it to be true. If we should push the matter on, what would become of you? I gave her one, they gave him two. You gave us three or more. They all returned from him to you, though they were mine before. If I or she should chance to be involved in his affair, he trusts to you to set them free, exactly as we were. My notion was that you had been, before she had this fit, an obstacle that came between him and ourselves and it. Don't let him know she liked them best, for this must ever be a secret kept from all the rest between yourself and me. Well, that's the most important piece of evidence we've heard yet, said the king, rubbing his hands. So now, let the jury, if any of them can explain it, said Alice. She'd grown so large in the last few minutes that she wasn't a bit afraid of interrupting him. I'd give him sixpence. I don't believe there's an atom of meaning in it. Now, Duncan, please.
The jury all wrote down on their slates, "She doesn't believe there's an atom of meaning in it." And none of them attempted to explain the paper. "There's no meaning in it," said the king. "That saves a world of trouble, you know, as we needn't try to find any. And yet, I don't know," he went on, spreading out the verses on his knee and looking at them with eye. "I seem to see some meaning in them after all. Said I could not swim." "You can't swim, can you?" he added, turning to the knave. The knave shook his head sadly. "Do I look like it?" he said, which he certainly did not, being entirely made of cardboard. "All right so far," said the king, and he went muttering over the verses to himself. "We know it to be true." That's the jury, of course. "If she should push the matter on, that must be the queen. What would become of you? What indeed? I gave her one, she gave him two. Why, that must be what he did with the tarts, you know." "But it goes on. They all returned from him to you," said Alice. "Why, there they are," the king triumphantly pointing to the tarts on the table. "Nothing could be clearer than that. And again, before she had this fit, you never had fits, my dear, I think," he said to the queen. Back to Joan.
Never, said the queen furiously, throwing an inkstand at the lizard as she spoke. The unfortunate little Bill had left off writing on his slate with one finger, as he found it made no mark, but he now hastily began again, using the ink that was trickling down his face so long as it lasted. "Then the words don't fit you," said the king, looking around the court with a smile. There was dead silence. "It's a pun," the king added in an angry tone, and everybody laughed. "Let the jury consider their verdict," the king said for about the 20th time that day. "No, no," said the queen. "Sentence first, verdict afterwards." Stuff and nonsense," said Alice loudly. "The idea of having the sentence first." "Hold your tongue," said the queen, turning purple. "I won't," said Alice. "Off with her head," the queen shouted at the top of her voice. Nobody moved. "Who cares for you?" said Alice. She had grown to her full size by this time. "You're nothing but a pack of cards." At this, the whole pack rose up into the air and came flying down on her. She gave a little scream, half of fright, half of anger, and tried to beat them off, and found herself lying on the bank with her head in the lap of her sister, who was gently brushing away some dead leaves that had fluttered down from the trees upon her face. Tom.
Wake up, Alice dear, said her sister. Why, what a long sleep you've had. Oh, I've had such a curious dream, said Alice, and she told her sister as well as she could remember them, all these strange adventures of hers that that you have just been reading about. And when she had finished, her sister kissed her and said, "It was a curious dream, dear, certainly, but now run in to your tea, it's getting late." So Alice got up and ran off, thinking while she ran, as well she might, what a wonderful dream it had been. But her sister sat still just as she left her, leaning her head on her hand, watching the setting sun and thinking of little Alice and all her wonderful adventures, till she too began dreaming after a fashion, and this was her dream. Katrina?
First, she dreamed about little Alice herself. Once again, the tiny hands were clasped upon her knee, and the bright, eager eyes were looking up into hers. She could hear the very tones of her voice and see that queer little toss of her head to keep back the wandering hair that would always get into her eyes. And still as she listened, or seemed to listen, the whole place around her became alive with strange creatures of her little sister's dream. The long grass rustled at her feet as the white rabbit hurried by. The frightened mouse splashed his way through the neighboring pool. She could hear the rattle of teacups as the March Hare and his friends shared their never-ending meal, and the shrill voice of the Queen ordering off her unfortunate guests to execution. Once more, the pig baby was sneezing on the Duchess's knee, while plates and dishes crashed around it. Once more, the shriek of the griffin, the squealing of the lizard's slate pencil, and the choking of the suppressed guinea pigs filled the air, mixed up with the distant sob of the miserable mock turtle. Des.
So she sat on with closed eyes and half believed herself in Wonderland, though she knew she had but to open them again and all would change to dull reality. The grass would be only rustling in the wind, and the pool rippling to the waving of the reeds. The rattling teacups would change to tinkling sheep bells, and the Queen's shrill cries to the voice of the shepherd boy, and the sneeze of the baby. The shriek of the griffin, and all the other queer noises would change, she knew, to the confused clamour of the busy farmyard, while the lowing of the cattle in the distance would take the place of Mock Turtle's heavy sobs. Anne.
Lastly, she pictured to herself how this same little sister of hers would, in the aftertime, be herself a grown woman, and how she would keep, through all her riper years, the simple and loving heart of her childhood, and how she would gather about her other little children and make their eyes bright and eager with many a strange tale, perhaps even with the dream of Wonderland of long ago, and how she would feel with all their simple sorrows and find a pleasure in all their simple joys, remembering her own child life and the happy summer days. The end.
Oh, that's a lovely end, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
The end.
The end. All right.
The word I was thinking of was doggerel.
Oh, doggerel, yeah.
Yeah.
It says, what is it? Where did I find it here? All it says is light, inept verse.
Uh-huh. Well, let's take a look at this. This is a couple of things that were standing out to me through this. One thing that really stands out to me is how, kind of like the Queen, that Alice's sense of humor is very tied up with peevishness
Mm.
and the feeling of superiority to what's going on around her.
She has a little bit of anxiety too, don't you think?
Yeah.
That,
Yes, she does have anxiety, but
I think she felt a little more secure.
it's kind of gone. Well, I mean, I think, I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about, children, particularly young children. Now, Alice is getting what do we decide? She's 7 years old.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So by the time a child is 7, they're starting to make more sense of the world. But certainly in much younger children, let's say in the 2 or 3, or even back going into the 1 o'clock, the world must seem very random and nonsensical.
Yeah, I was just thinking of children listening to this tale for the first time. Must have been absolutely, you know, uh, wide-eyed and trying to and going along with this. It must have been fabulous for them to hear it for the first time. The children. I mean, we're reading it as adults and that, but yeah,
When you're a child, you are there.
yeah,
And I remember that one line. I think everybody remembers if they never don't remember anything else out of this book is "off with her head." And and I think you would come out with those few words every once in a while in
yeah.
a situation. Yeah,
And the other one there was stuff and nonsense.
stuff and
You
nonsense.
you hear that sometimes as well, but I never knew it was in this book.
Didn't know it was an Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah. Well, I remember as a child reading this particular scene in this book with a little bit of fear
hey,
that I found the queen to be, a kind of a
yeah,
angry
Mm.
person who could do bad things to you if you weren't careful.
Yeah, just like Mama,
Yes.
big and powerful and not always what a child would consider reasonable,
Hmm.
and it's kind of like, you shall go to bed without suppers. Do you want a spanking? You just wait till your father gets home.
yeah,
Which to many cases in children, they don't know what's going on any more than most dogs. Most dogs don't know why they're being punished.
yeah,
They just know that all of a sudden this person who's been so loving and nice hits them and yells at them. It's kind of like, what?
yeah. A lot of people talk to their dogs as if the dogs understood English. Yeah, and a lot of the time the dog doesn't understand.
Well, yeah, the baton to take that. Also, a lot of mothers talk to their babies and infants as if they understood English.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You see them leaning in and talking in this kind of baby voice to them, and
Right, and the child is going, what is this? I don't understand.
the child is saying, "Can they not speak English to me?"
Well, I think that actually Lewis Carroll has taken advantage of this distant memory of
Yeah,
mother and father and auntie and uncle talking what to them is total nonsense.
yeah, yeah,
they had no clue what's being said to them. I mean, we've all been in this situation,
Yeah.
we're little and people are talking to us and they seem very earnest and they're rattling on and we're going, I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah.
Well, I think dogs and cats and little children have understand things a little bit in the same way as that they understand the tone of voice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
why off with their head.
Yeah.
And this is I'm really grasping things out of the air, but off with their head is also means this makes no sense.
Mm.
You can't use your brain to
Mm.
compute what nonsense means. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like off with your head.
It sounds very extreme.
Yeah.
There's a saying also, like, you say a person, they're off their heads, which means that they're crazy, like, yeah. So I don't know whether that came from that or not, but say, she's off her head or he's off her head.
Yeah.
Don't mind her. Yeah, don't mind them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the
I get
first
the
one, that's
sorry. So I get the idea that Alice, as a young child, she wants things in their proper place,
Mm.
but they're not.
Yeah.
And that is very
yeah,
confusing for her.
yeah.
Sure.
Well, she's in that position of she does know some things. Okay.
Yes,
Once
like a
again,
child. Yes, yes.
like a
Like a
child, a
child,
child knows some
some
things,
things, yeah.
but still large portions of the world and what's being said to them is,
Mm.
from their point of view, just hot air may have meaning, but I don't know what it means, sort of thing. And so when Lewis Carroll is using his understanding of what children understand as a humorous technique, to take something that a child understands and use it in a different way.
He's very well able to get into describing things, as you say, the important aspect of it and leaving out all the rest of it. Sufficient for a child to grasp the idea, the simple things.
Well, I'm looking at the chapter 11, which we started today, which is a court of law. And he points out the parts of the court that a little girl like Alice will have she'll know the words, that it's a trial and that,
There's a
um,
judge and a
there's a
jury.
judge and a jury.
Mm.
Yeah. And she has some sense of what would be evidence
And what is nonsense?
and what is nonsense. So when you put nonsense in the evidence category, that's very humorous. And to have a jury, with the creatures in them,
Mm.
that's very humorous.
There's no query or suggestion of anything wrong with all the rabbits, the rabbit talking and the cards speaking.
Mm.
There's no question there. It's
No.
all perfectly natural.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at this one where the jurors are are writing on their slates.
Yeah.
Mm.
And Alice says, "What are they doing?" She asked the griffin. Of course, we all ask griffins all the time. They can't have anything to put down yet before the trial's begun. Okay, Griffin says they're putting down their names. The griffin whispered, "For fear they should forget them before the end of the trial."
Mm.
Okay, so that's causes great indignation to Alice, because in Alice's mind, you don't forget your name. Okay. But of course, the humor, part of the humor is this: of the jurors are not humans; they're creatures.
They're probably the stimulus for what she was dreaming, though. She might have been playing with cards. And then when she fell asleep, she had these
Mm-hmm.
pictures on her mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thing in the story, at the end, Alice realizes it's a dream and everything is perfectly okay. But within the dream, nothing is resolved. Everything is up in the air.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
No conclusion within the dream.
No.
Mm-hmm.
No. I also like the way that he ends it, the way he hands over to the sister.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah,
sister, the sister,
we need to. There we go. Okay, Joan got it. She got to
yeah,
it before I did.
the way he hands over to the sister.
And then
Uh-huh.
And
does
then the
she have a
sis,
dream also?
and she, yeah, he says after a fashion. She doesn't
Mhm.
really have a dream. She
Yeah.
begins dreaming after a fashion.
Yeah, hers
And
is
then,
a waking daydream.
yeah, and she
So that she hears and sees the same things.
yeah, she relives all the things that Alice has
Yeah.
told her. I think that's a really good way, the way he kind of thought of that as well, and put that in, yeah.
But that's kind of what we do when we read a book.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
getting a report, and then
yeah,
when we think about it later, we
yeah,
kind of fashion it into a waking daydream.
yeah, yeah.
So, for example, I went to a French movie, a Godard movie, who, they're a little bit difficult movies, and this was Masculine Feminine, and it completely baffled me. And
Mm,
I left the theater thinking, by reports from people who I respect, they say this is a really good movie,
mm,
and I don't get it.
yeah,
So that was yesterday afternoon. So I've been thinking about it and reading a few articles since then. And since then, I've been kind of piecing the thing together.
mm,
And now I'm beginning to see why others would think it's a really good movie. But in this case, with Alice's sister,
yeah,
Alice's sister, Alice is sleeping with her head in her sister's lap.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah,
So the sister knows how long Alice has been sleeping.
yeah,
Then she kind of wakes Alice up, and Alice tells her the story pretty completely.
yeah,
So yeah, and I think that was a really good handover
yeah.
to bring
Well,
us out of this fantasy thing.
there's a question. The sister, she said, the whole place around her became alive with the strange creatures of her little sister's dream.
Mm.
Fair enough, but at the very start, she's talking about once or twice she peeped into the book her sister was reading, but it had no pictures or conversations in it. And what use what's the use of a book, thought Alice, without pictures or conversation? Now, if she's a younger sister, she's 6 or 7, reading a book without pictures, that's pretty far going now.
Mhm.
I don't know enough about kids to be able to say it's impossible, but it just seems a bit strange to me. I understood reading through the story that the sister was older than her. So whether her little sister, whether simply she's smaller but older.
Yeah, I think
Just a
she's
bit of a-
younger. She's younger, isn't?
Well, she's little, yeah.
Alice's sister is younger.
No, Alice is younger than her sister.
Alice is younger
Yeah,
than.
that's what I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that
But
would-
her little sister's dream.
Little Alice.
Is she
Yeah, she
smaller
might be,
than her?
but
she's
look at
probably referring to the sister.
yeah. Look at how, see, we are applying as adults, we are applying our knowledge to this story.
Mm.
Like even if Lewis Carroll never said whether the sister was younger or older, we would probably frame it because it would not make any sense to us. I'm speaking for myself here when I use us. Would not make any sense for an older sister to be sleeping with her head in her younger sister's lap.
Mm.
Mm.
That's just kind of a prejudice I have about the way the world works.
Certainly, that was the impression I got as we started the story. The sister was older.
Did way back in the beginning, did we have this description of Alice falling asleep with her head in her sister's lap?
I don't remember it if we did.
I don't remember it either.
No.
I'll look and see.
Just that, where's it? Whether the pleasure of making a daisy chain would be worth the trouble of getting up and picking the daisies. So she's awake there, when suddenly a white rabbit with pink eyes ran close by her. And then she followed the rabbit and fell down the rabbit hole. So she was awake all the time.
Mhm.
You think she was awake when the rabbit came along, or was that
Yeah.
the beginning of the sleep?
Well, it could have been part of the dream, but the way it's put here, I would have thought she was awake.
But
She
is
was
that
puzzling.
okay? Okay, let me press a little bit on this though, Des. Is that not what we do with our dreams though? That when we first fall asleep and start dreaming, there's still the feeling that we are in everyday life.
Yes, I would
Sometimes.
think so, yes.
Yeah.
I
Certainly
think
our-
at the end too,
Yeah.
through the whole entire dream.
Yeah, I'm just assuming, I mean, once again, I'm applying my sense of the way the world works, that by the time you see white rabbits running by saying, I'm late, that would be a dream.
Okay.
Yeah.
Either
I
that
just,
or I took some LSD.
okay. I Googled it as one does. And it says Alice's sister is not named in the original book, but the character is believed to be based on her real life older sister, whose name was Lorena Little, and she was 13 years old.
Huh. Okay.
Considerably older.
Yes.
Yeah, and then she sends Alice home for tea or dinner or something like
Yeah.
a mother, sort of a mother's.
Mm.
Now, obviously, there's no particular evidence. It's just a guess that she is Alice Little's older sister, 13.
Mhm.
In the very last paragraph, is she pictured to herself how this same little sister of hers, now it could be little physically, but
Yeah.
little usually means younger
Yeah.
in that context.
Mhm, mhm. And I find it interesting that the age of the older sister would be 13.
Hmm.
because 13 is exactly that liminal border when children are not sure whether they're children or whether they're
Mm.
adolescents.
Mm.
And occasionally I remember seeing some children right around that age who, were trying to live their life as if they were still little, because when you're
Mhm.
little, you're allowed to have fantasies and get excited and all that. By the time you get to be 13, in many circumstances, you have to start, quote, behaving yourself
Mm.
and don't act like a little child. So that's just that's just a thing that I feel there. That's an interesting age to pick for
So
the.
yeah, I think it was the older sister that was reading the book.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
that's what I guessed as well.
yeah.
So she wouldn't need pictures.
And yeah,
So as it would be, it's the older sister who's reading the book aloud to her little sister when her little sister falls asleep.
I don't think she's reading it aloud, but
Yeah.
I think she's reading it. Yeah, and Alice is looking at it,
Yes.
and she's wondering. I think she wonders then why would anybody be reading a book? There's no pictures in it,
Pictures.
and then she kind of is getting tired, and suddenly or gradually she sees the white rabbit, and I think in that instance she's fallen asleep.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, she didn't feel herself. I think she says like she was getting sleepy and tired
Hmm.
with the and
Bored.
in that instance she was asleep. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's what I think. Yeah, but kind of
Okay, because we had that thing right at the end where the either Alice or her sister's talking about that they're back in everyday life, dull everyday life.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And it is true. It is in the dream world where we morph into different sizes and
Mm.
become different. Where is that part? That's okay. Let's see if I can find.
Um, the introduction of this edition that I have talks about interpretations
Mm-hmm.
and how they've changed through the years.
You mean critics' interpretations of Alice in what?
It says the Alice books lend themselves readily to any type of symbolic interpretation, political, metaphysical, or Freudian. Some learned commentaries of this sort are hilarious. It goes on. In recent years, the trend has naturally been towards psychoanalytic interpretation. Alexander Woollcott once expressed relief that the Freudians had left Alice's dreams unexplored, but that was 20 years ago, and now, alas, we are all amateur head shrinkers.
Exactly.
So that tells us something. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I think I have to go back and read all these notes, and
Mm-hmm.
because there is some relationship to them to what he is saying, or he's using events, uh, not necessarily to be portrayed, but to be used in some way in his imagination. and his writing.
Well, let me read this paragraph here. This is the waking up stage. Alice, oh, I had such a curious dream, said Alice. And she told her sister, as well she could remember them, all these strange adventures of hers that you have just been reading about. And when she had finished, her sister kissed her and said, oh, it was a curious dream, dear, certainly. But now run into your tea. It's getting late.
Yeah.
So Alice got up and ran off, thinking while she ran, as well she might, what a wonderful dream it had been. But her sister sat still just as she left her, leaning her head on her hand, watching the setting sun and thinking of little Alice and all her wonderful adventures, till she too began dreaming after a fashion, and this was her dream. And then it goes through basically taking Alice's reported dream and dreaming it, daydreaming it her own way.
Mhm.
Would younger children get that switch of point of view from the younger to the older sister?
Say that again, Des?
Um, Carol switches the point of view from the younger to the older sister as the older sister recounts the dream and has it herself, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Would his audience be old enough to grasp that kind of switch?
I think when you're writing a children's book on Lewis Carroll's level, you're really only concerned with your younger listeners understanding enough of it to stay interested. That you don't necessarily want to tailor the book strictly to a younger listener. I mean, is this not what Ulysses and Finnegan's Wake is like? You know, Ulysses is the one where we, as even adults, we have some understanding of it, but we're actually in the position of a young child, so to speak, to where, well, golly gee, some of this book is just marvelous, and some of it I just don't get at all. But shall I assume that that there is meaning in everything that James Joyce wrote here and put a little extra effort into learning what it might be?
Mm.
I wonder, would it have anything to do with the fact that he wrote it initially for these two girls whose father worked with him or something in the college? And it was a different time. It was probably a parent would have been reading to them.
Mm.
Yeah, you know, because Alice is just 7. She's 7.5 in the next follow-up. And she says she's 7.5. So maybe it's just a different audience to now.
Mm.
Yes,
I don't know.
he probably wanted to include the older sister.
Because there's the two of them there.
Yeah. So there was some aspect of it, an overall view of the younger sister's experience,
Mm.
that story, yeah, and give the older girl a position of being the older girl
Yeah.
in the
I'm just
story.
wondering, I've no idea.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
I don't
No,
think I have any idea either.
yeah. I just have this prejudice that a good writer is always trying to write a little beyond their audience.
Mm.
You know, a formulaic writer, and I, like popular literature. People who read popular literature generally, they are not interested in learning anything new.
Yeah.
They just want to read,
Mm.
they just want to read, like if a person's into cowboy novels, they just want to read about cowboy novels. They don't want to learn anything new, maybe a couple little weird little facts, but basically they just want a formula story.
Hmm.
And I worked in a half-price books for years, and there's the whole thing of romance literature.
Mm.
Well, a person who reads romantic literature, people who read romance, they don't want to learn anything. As a matter of fact, they don't even really care whether they read a book or not. It's almost academic to whether they had read the book. Because there would be many times I would be at the counter and a woman would come in and she would have a big stack of romance novels. And then she would have this list where she was trying to figure out, have I read this book before or not? And they would almost invariably say, oh, yes. One time I came in and I bought some books and I got them home and I was 90% through the book when I finally realized, oh,
Mm.
I've read this book before.
Yeah.
Well, romance is very popular now. It's
Yeah.
in.
Oh, it's always been popular. Let
Mm.
me
Yeah.
guarantee you. I have had to sort through and replenish the romance section many, many times. It's a big section. And we would have this thing. It was really weird. We'd have a couple come in sometimes, and the woman would want to go to the romance section, and the man would want to go back into the dirty book room.
Or war.
But
No,
but the point but the point I'm trying to make is that some people, they are not reading to learn anything new at all. They want an emotional sensation which they have experienced many, many times. And to hand them a book like The Dubliners or Ulysses is totally useless because
Mm.
they don't
Mm.
want to be challenged.
Yeah.
So
Yes, I found that reading romance is a tremendous switch off. You can read a story, whether it is historical or fantasy or science fiction. By the time, if you get involved in the story, everything else falls away and you're just the story and me.
Mhm.
And it gives
yeah.
my mind a break. It has a rest from all the other stuff.
Mhm. Yes.
there you go. Okay, I think you're right. I think you're
Mhm.
right. My version of that is to lay down and take a nap.
Mm.
I take the Alice's older sister route.
No, I think I think I do both. Depends on the mood I'm in. I'm probably generally reading more than one book at a time, and
Mhm.
one will take more energy than the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's an interesting word to use, energy, in that context.
But it does take energy to read a
Yes.
It
Yes. Effort.
thinking
yeah.
is actual thinking is one of the most energy consuming. I
Huh.
mean, literally consumes calories. It's very high up there, even with exercise. To actually sit down and think new thoughts is very energy intensive.
Well, sometimes you turn away something for reading it because, oh, I'm just not in the mood. I just can't.
Yeah, yeah, I do that all the time.
Yeah.
I did that. And that's what I was saying. This past weekend, I actually went to two films, and they were both very demanding films. To which I after I left each of them, I continued to think about them and to try to work out. The first one I could work out pretty well. It was a very formal movie and kind of coldly logical in a way. The second movie was a much warmer movie, but it was kind of chopped up and chaotic, and I left and I said, I don't know what this was about. You
Were these
know,
old movies or new movies, Duncan?
these are both French movies from the 1960s.
Mhm.
One was Last Year in Marienbad,
Yeah, good
and
movie.
the other one was Masculine Feminine.
I
Um,
just saw um, uh, what was her name? Emily.
Mm.
oh,
With
okay, the young girl.
yeah,
Okay,
last night. I saw it last night. Yeah,
okay,
Said that years ago.
so that's about the same age as what uh, Duncan was watching.
I think that's a little bit later, if I'm not mistaken.
Later.
Yeah, I think it's like 20 years later.
Ooh, that's a lot later.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, you're right. I mean, some books take a lot of energy.
Mhm. Well,
You
this
know,
one, it I think it was considered a fine film, but it did not take a lot of energy.
it's as I remember, it's kind of light and bright.
Yeah, repetitive. It really, they had announced in the advertising of the film that when they had shown it at the theater before, it had had 34 showings. And I remember that I had seen it and I remembered it as having some charm. I was bored out of my mind when I was watching it this time.
Huh.
It was so repetitive and nothing happened. Just absolutely nothing was happening.
That's like Last Year in Marienbad. It is a very cold film, a very formalistic, beautiful. Takes place in a very fancy resort somewhere in France. And I like it all, but like in Last Year in Marienbad and then Masculine Feminine. I mean, I did not immediately like either one of them, and I wasn't even sure what the value of them were. And that was one of those cases, like with James Joyce, that I take it as a given that if people that I respect have good things to say, then I assume that I'm missing something. And it's incumbent upon myself to go and kind of read and to think about them. So Alice in Wonderland is an interesting publication because it's got both. It's both immediately charming and weird and funny. And yet
Duncan, can I make a suggestion about Through the Looking Glass? I don't know if all the books have it, but before um, it starts, there is a description about the chess and how the chess
Yeah.
game and how it relates to it, and it also has a little author's preface to it. If we could read that, before we start reading Through the Looking Glass, I think it would be helpful.
Sure. Let's see if, okay, is this the preface to the 1897 edition?
Oh, I don't know.
It starts as the
Yeah,
chess problem given on the previous page has puzzled
right.
some of my
Yeah.
readers. And maybe well, sure,
Yeah.
I'm fine. Yeah.
And the author's preface.
Yes, there are two things.
I don't know if I have the second one.
Well, Here, the author's preface is second. It's just a paragraph or two.
That's good. Well, if it's beneficial, then we should read it.
Yeah, well, the one other part is longer, but I think it really is because it appears that the moves made by the people in the book are chess moves.
In the Through the Looking Glass book.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I have the author's preface in my copy.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Maybe I'll try to find a copy of that, but you may just have to read it and I listen to it. Or if someone has a digital copy of it, we could share it through share screen.
My book has also a dramatis personae with
Hmm.
the white pieces in the pawns and the red, the
Oh.
red, and who's
Yeah.
what, like Tweedledee and
Yeah. Ah.
Oh, okay. So now okay, so mine starts off after you get past the table of contents. It says white pawn Alice to play and win in 11 moves. Then it says red. Then it shows the chessboard.
yeah.
Then it shows, looks like it's showing two different games. Okay, first move, Alice meets red queen. I guess that's the interpretation. Alice through queen's 3D by railroad to queen's fourth. Tweedledum and Tweedledee. Does anybody have a digital copy of the author's preface or the author's introduction?
No.
No. Okay, and I assume, Joan, that yours is printed?
Printed.
Okay.
So-
What edition are you looking at?
It is. Let me look. 1960. It looks like.
1960. Who was the publisher?
Let's see. I think it's a Signet.
It's a Signet. And what's the name of the book?
The Annotated Alice.
Oh,
Don't you have that, Duncan? I thought you had that.
I do have the annotated Alice, but I do not have the author's
Huh. On
preface.
page 171?
I will have to tell you that I have this
That's
in
right, you're not reading.
digital form.
Right.
I have a way of getting things these days.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I can go look. I can probably find the Signet edition of it.
Katrina, sounds like you have the same one I do.
Yes.
Mhm. Introduction and Notes by Martin Gardner.
Yes. But that doesn't have this dramatis personae. That's in this other.
I don't have that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I will look for it, and it's not a big problem if I don't find it. You'll just have to read it, Joan
Yeah, it's
and
short.
Katrina.
Can do that.
Okay.
What's interesting at the back is there's a bibliography, and there are so many books that are written about Alice and Carol.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that in its way, it's an important book.
In its way. Yeah.
Mhm.
And actually, I have a big one. annotated, Alice. It's in a box somewhere.
Oh, here's a poem. Enchanting Alice, black and white, has made your charm perennial, and not save chaos and old night can you part from Tenniel. That's from a poem.
Okay.
There's also apparently an earlier version for younger children of Alice in the Nursery. Keep seeing
Oh,
references
the
to
Nursery Alice.
that. The
In
Nursery Alice.
Nursery Alice,
Yeah, the
Carol.
Nursery Alice. What is that? It's a rewritten and shortened version of the first Alice book for very young readers from 0 to 5, with Tenniel's enlarged and colored illustrations.
Mhm,
That'll be interesting.
mhm.
This is, it's just endless what you can read if you want to spend your
Yeah.
years studying Alice. You can do
Oh,
it.
I'm sure there are scholars whose specialty is
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
these two stories, and they have probably spent 40 or 50 years doing nothing but
Mm,
researching and writing scholarly articles.
Sure.
yeah.
And I can go do that. I have access to Gestor these days, and I can go poking through that. I don't know. Do you know about Gestor in Ireland? I would assume you know in Ireland about Gestor.
I don't.
Gestor is a online collection of all the scholastic journals.
Is it with a G or a J?
That's a J-S-T-O-R. Your library
Mm,
probably allows you some access to Gestor.
mm.
But Gestor is really interesting. Unfortunately, it costs a lot of money to subscribe to their service. I think I paid last time $190 for the year.
Oh, wow.
And I have unlimited access to all the articles, and it is an incredible resource, but I can only download 100 on to my computer. I can read them all.
They don't
And
want you passing it around for free.
no, would they probably charge universities incredible, amounts of money for this service? And it really is an
Yeah.
amazing service. I mean, you go and you type in Lewis Carroll. I would conservatively estimate that if I went in today and typed in Lewis Carroll, I would probably come up with 50,000 articles
Mm.
from, scholarly journals for the last 100 years. And there will be all kinds of weird little topics.
Mhm.
As you know, I mean, that's what scholars do. But some of it is really good. Anyway, your library undoubtedly will provide you some access to it. So if you go to your library or you just search on your library site, type in GSTOR and see what they say. And probably through your library card, you can access a certain amount of the collection, and you can probably download like 10 articles a year or something like that. All right. Seems like we are done for the day.
Yeah.
Now, is next week the first Monday of November?
No,
No,
No.
it's the following one.
7th.
Okay.
So the first Monday's going to be in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
The fortunate thing is that by the time we get to the first Monday, our time zones are coordinated again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But next week will be weird. So Des, you and Tom and and are aware of the time change.
Yeah.
I think it's
Oh,
going
yeah,
to
I'll have to
be,
think about that.
yeah, I think,
Will it be 6 o'clock for us?
I think it will be at 6, Anne. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
you might want to
1
check
hour like throws the whole
after
world
the
into
time
confusion.
changes on Sunday. You might want to confirm on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would be because it's normally 7, and if we're going back an hour, it'll be 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
Duncan, is ours changing?
Ours will
Nothing.
change on November 5th, the week after.
And we jump forward,
No,
We're
we
back.
fall back.
No, back.
back. Oh, that's fall.
We fall back, but you won't have to worry about it. For if you're on any European or Irish Zooms, you need to be concerned. But since this Zoom is based in the United States,
Yeah.
nothing changes for you in
I see.
reality, except
Yeah.
that starting on the 5th, the sun will be setting earlier. The time will be the same, but the sun will set early. Anyway,
Yeah.
thanks, everybody.
Thank
you.
Duncan.
you.
Yeah. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
Joan, I'm
Bye.
going to put you in charge of the introduction with the chessboard stuff.
You're the one that's fun to read.
Read up Bobby Fischer.